Active and passive voice. A sentence is said to be in the active voice when the subject is the doer of the action. For example, Ajay drives a car. Ajay drives a car. Here, Ajay is the doer of the action because this is the person who is driving a car. And second example, the wind uproots tree. Here, the wind is the doer of the action. So the subject or the doer of the action is a person or a thing. A sentence is said to be in the passive voice when the object of the active voice becomes the subject of the passive voice. I repeat, a sentence is said to be in the passive voice when the object of the active voice becomes the subject of the passive voice. For example, as I've taken in the active, that is Ajay drives the car, the passive of this will be the car is driven by Ajay. The car is driven by Ajay. Here, Ajay is in the subject position and car is also in the subject position. In the active, car is in the object position, and in passive, Ajay is in the object position. But here again, if we read the sentence that is car is driven by Ajay, again Ajay is only the doer of the action because it makes us follow that actually Ajay is driving a car. So if subject is in the object position, then the sentence is in passive sentence. If the subject is in the subject position, then it is a active sentence. Discussing few points under it. It is usual practice to express action in the active voice, but the use of passive voice is recommended in these cases. We use passive voice in these cases, and the cases are that if we do not know who has done the action, if we don't know actually who has done the action, then the use of passive voice is recommended in this case. For example, these goods were damaged in the transit. Second, the latecomers were sent to the principal. So actually, who were the latecomers? So we don't know that who has done the action. So in these cases, we'll use it in the passive voice. The second is that if the action itself is more important than knowing who or what causes it. For example, Pakistan was given freedom on 14th August. Was given freedom on 14th August. Second example, the class 10 final results were declared last year. So now the action itself is more important than knowing who or what causes it, or the person who has done is it not important to be known. So in these cases as well, we frame the sentence only in the passive sentence. How do we change the active into passive? There are a few rules which we follow to convert active into passive. The first among it is the object of the verb is changed in the subject position and the subject in the object position. For example, if I take animals eat grass. So this is an active sentence. We come to know because this is a subject position, this is a object position. And actually the subject, the animal, is the doer of the action who is actually doing the action, eating the grass. So the subject is in the subject position. So we come to know that a sentence is in the active sentence. If I frame it into passive, I'll take the object in the subject position, that is grass is eaten by animals. Again the position is the same, that is animals in the object position and grass is in the subject position, but the difference is that object takes the place of the subject and subject takes the place of object. But if you read the sentence again, that is grass is eaten by animals, we come to know that actually animal is the doer of the action, but the doer is in the object position. Thus the second sentence is a passive sentence. Next rule to change active into passive is the verb in the action voice sentence is changed into passive form. To make this change, the correct form of be is used. like is, am, are, was, were, been with the past participle are used. For example, if I say Indian scientists see a UFO, is active sentence because the person who is looking to the UFO is the Indian scientist. If I convert the same sentence into passive, the sentence would be a UFO is seen by Indian scientist. So UFO is the object and I've taken the object in the subject position when I'm converting into a passive sentence. I repeat my sentence again, that is a UFO is seen by Indian scientist. So is here is the be verb which I have used with the past participle, that is seen. Third is in passive voice, verbs are governed by the number of object. For example, the carpenter made chair. The carpenter made chairs. So here chairs is plural. So the passive voice verbs are governed by the number of objects. So if I convert this active into passive, it will start with chairs, no doubt. So chairs were made by the carpenters. Word because plural. The chairs were made by the carpenters is the passive sentence. Now the fourth rule, in the passive voice, by is placed before the object. By is placed before the object. For example, the principal announced the result. So the doer of the action is the principal because he is announcing the result and the doer is in the subject position. Thus we conclude that the sentence is in the active sentence. Now converting the same sentence into passive, it will start with the result because principal has declared what is the result. The result was announced by the principal is a passive sentence. So here we have used the word by before the object. So here the principal is the object in the second sentence because it is in the object position. The result was announced by the principal. Next point, the unknown or unimportant or obvious subjects of active voice do not take by in passive voice. For example, if I write someone has stolen my watch. Someone has stolen my watch. Here the subject. We know that someone has stolen the watch, but who we don't know. So if I want to convert it into a passive sentence, I'll take watch first. That is, my watch has been stolen. If you write my watch has been stolen by someone is a wrong sentence because here the subject is unknown or unimportant for us to be mentioned. That is the reason we are not taking the name of the doer of the action in the passive sentence. If it would have written she has stolen my watch, then in that case passive would be my watch has been stolen by her. If in someone it would have written he, then in passive my watch has been stolen by him. Or if it has been addressed by any name, then again you would have used the name as well. But here the subject is not very important to be used. For example, if a sentence is given that is my watch has been stolen. So actually what is stolen? Watch we know. That means we are having an object in the sentence but we don't have a subject in the sentence. Similarly, if you want to convert it into an active sentence, then we have an object but we are not having a subject. So in case of subject, you will write someone because it is unknown to you. It is unimportant to be mentioned in the passive sentence. So in that case, we'll use the word someone has stolen my watch. So if in a sentence if in a passive sentence you are not having a subject but you have an object, you can convert it into active sentence. But if you don't have an object and you have a subject, so you can't convert it into a passive sentence. Next, if models. If models is used in active voice, the verbs are changed into passive. Like models plus be plus past participle form of verb. A decad can kidnap children. Can here is a model. Children can be kidnapped by a decade. The second example, the cop should chase the terrorist. So here should is a model. If I convert it into a passive sentence, again I will follow the same thing, that is, a terrorist should model be third form, here chased by the cop. Next, verbs with two objects takes these two form in passive sentence. In some sentences we have two objects. Take an example of it. Her uncle presented her a watch. Presented her a watch. So here the subject is uncle and object is her, and the second object we are having in it is watch. So this is object number 1, this is object number 2. Sometimes it happens that in a sentence we have two objects. If it happens so, then as we know according to the rule that if we convert the active into a passive sentence, we first take object in the subject position and then subject in the object position. So now here we are having two objects. We can do it in either of the cases. First we can take object 1, then object 2, and then followed by subject, or object 2, object 1, and then the subject. Giving you the passive sentence with object 1. Then object 1 is her. So she was presented a watch by her uncle. Second, if you take object 2 first, that the passive sentence will be a watch was presented to her by her uncle. So object 2, object 1 followed by a subject, and in the previous one it was object 1, then object 2 followed by a subject. Next is, if a verb is followed by preposition, if it is followed by preposition, retain them when changed into a passive voice. You need to retain it. Mother looks after me. Mother looks after me. So here after is a preposition. Now if I convert it into a passive sentence, I am looked after. So I need to maintain the preposition position, that is, I need to repeat it again in the passive sentence after by mother. Next one is that if a negative and interrogative sentences retain their negative and interrogative form in a passive voice. If you are talking about a negative or a interrogative sentence, then it also retains their negative and interrogative form in the passive voice. They do not play hockey. They do not play hockey is a negative sentence. Now if you convert it into a passive sentence, hockey is not played by them. So we are retaining the same position, the same sentence, that is a negative is again a negative in a passive also. Now taking the example of interrogative, will he join the club? If I convert it into a passive sentence, the sentence will be, will the club be joined by him?